The second volume of the third-year arc is finally released, and based on the spoilers that had been going around on the internet, it seems this new volume is not something that will leave a long impression in the future. If you like Classroom Elite because of the special exam or the action, where each class fights each other, you probably wouldn't like this volume, but if you enjoy fun interaction between characters, or some mystery that finally sees the light, you would probably love this volume. It might be just an incomplete spoiler with a high chance to turn out wrong, but here is my first impression for this new volume. Let's take a look at it one by one. When I read the synopsis, I thought this will become a very interesting exam with a cool concept, because this is the first time we have seen a type of exam where the student doesn't know the rule, but they still need to face it. However, this new special exam turns out to be just some plot convenience to make sure the gap between the four classes keeps reducing. This new special exam is simply an upgrade of their everyday life, where they need to behave and act like proper students to make sure they wouldn't get a penalty. To make it worse, only the class in the last place will get their class point deducted, and it's not even that big. Just like the exam in the previous volume, I start to think that the school is being too generous to them, and it removes the importance of the special exam even further. The way this exam concluded is also very unsatisfying, because Ayanokoji's class lost simply because two students in his class caught the flu. Instead of using this new exam as the turning point to show Horikita or Ryu when fighting back against Ayanokoji, Kinugasa chose to create an unremarkable exam that will be easily forgotten. At the end, Ichinose's class managed to gain first place, and there are now only 3 points difference between her class and Ayanokoji's. There is no change in class order, but based on a few speculations from Katsuragi and Kaneda, this is just a warm-up for the next bigger exam, so we should expect a big change to finally come in that exam, and it better be a good one. After the new special exam was announced, Horikita's class fell into chaos thanks to the ambiguity of the exam. Horikita tries to lead the class to discuss how they should face it, but their discussion doesn't give birth to anything useful. In the middle of chaos, Coenji simply walks leaving the class just like usual, and Horikita chases him for his help. Horikita simply asks him to cooperate, because if he doesn't, they won't be able to graduate from Class A. Coenji refuses as expected, and he even mocks Horikita that she only tried to convince herself she could win even without Ayanokoji. Coenji also mentioned that Horikita is not the only one who tries to force him using the urgency to graduate from Class A, which indicates that Chairman Sakayanagi already told him about the bet between his father and Atsuomi. Speaking of Coenji, he is probably the best chance Horikita has to win against Ayanokoji, but the way to force him to cooperate is the biggest problem. This volume gives us a scene where Horikita confronted Coenji in his room. Right after she figured out the content of the exam, Horikita went straight to Sudo's room. She found him teaching Onodera to study, and she shared her thoughts with them. They later go to Coenji's room, where Coenji surprisingly welcomes them. Horikita offers him 200,000 points to behave like a proper student, because if you notice Coenji's behavior, he often puts his feet on his desk, and that will definitely cost them a lot of penalty, so Coenji really needs to behave. However, Coenji raised the compensation to 500,000 points, and Horikita pays it with her own money. After that, Sudo told Horikita that he will always help her, even though he wouldn't be able to replace Ayanokoji. That is the moment when Horikita realizes that she still has a lot of friends in her class, even though Ayanokoji is no longer there. Horikita's way of handling Coenji is simple and effective, but it is actually really disappointing. Horikita's private point is not infinite, so it's just a matter of time until she runs out, and Coenji, who could be ordered around with enough private points, also doesn't look nice in the eyes. I really hope this is just the beginning of their cooperation, and Horikita will eventually find a way to force Coenji without paying him. Other than Coenji, the way Horikita is asking for help from Ibuki and Kushida is way better. She simply offers them a free meal, and Ibuki, who hasn't eaten any decent meal for the past month, will immediately forget that they are enemies. People often have a way better mood with a full stomach, so it's easier to ask them anything, even if it's the way to defeat Ayanokoji. Their conversation on how to defeat Ayanokoji suddenly turns to Ayanokoji's real identity, and they immediately connect her past with Ichika and Yagami, because they are the only ones they know that may know something about Ayanokoji's past. Harikita trying to find Ayanokoji's secret and past is not something new, but so far she always tries to ask Ayanokoji directly. Even though Ayanokoji never answered her, Harikita who tried to find out from the other source left quite a bad taste in my mouth. I don't say it's wrong, but it should be way better if Ayanokoji choose to tell Harikita himself. That would become proof that Ayanokoji actually changed and finally could trust someone enough to tell his past. However, Harikita who knows about Ayanokoji's past and finally decides to save him might sound cliché, but it doesn't sound bad at all. Wanting to know more about Ayanokoji, Harikita decided to ask Kei for everything she knew about Ayanokoji. While she is hesitant to tell her about their wrestling routine, Kei actually tells Harikita something very useful, which is her suspicion about Ayanokoji and Ichinose's cooperation. She accurately predicted that Ayanokoji's actual plan was to expel Ichinose and transfer to her class, but something changed that forced him to improvise. Kei once again shows her amazing deduction where she could even mimic how Ayanokoji was thinking, and it's also a surprise to see her go shopping with Harikita. Harikita and Kei sound like an unthinkable duo back in the day, but who knows what kind of surprise will surface from their relationship. Even if it's born from tragedy, let's just hope it will be a happy end for both of them. Ayanokoji's feelings for Hiyori become one of the main focus in this new volume. If you already see the spoiler, you will be confused on why Ayanokoji suddenly acts out of character by realizing how much he wanted to meet Hiyori, or how much he doesn't want Hiyori to hate him. He literally said he might be in love with her, and even Ichinose noticed that Ayanokoji was thinking of her when she tried to touch his hand. As for Hiyori, she also realizes that she has an actual feeling for Ayanokoji. She is conflicted that they are enemies from different class, even though Ayanokoji is no longer dating Kei. To make it worse, Ryuen and Kaneda also knew about her feeling. As expected, Kaneda actually likes Hiyori, but because of his nerd face and insecurity, he cannot muster the courage to tell her. There is a scene where Kaneda asks Ayanokoji if he doesn't mind whether Hiyori hates him or not, and that question surprisingly froze Ayanokoji. Ayanokoji thought he doesn't mind being hated by anyone, but when it comes to Hiyori, he genuinely doesn't want it to happen. Ayanokoji later gave a flower to Hiyori after they left the library. He thanks her for not avoiding him after he changed class, and Hiyori finally realizes he sees Ayanokoji as a man. This whole Ayanokoji and Hiyori scene is hard to understand. Ayanokoji's feeling toward Hiyori feels so sudden, and I don't see how it would help in the future plot. That's why the other spoiler from the Chinese server makes everything more understandable. Ayanokoji intentionally gave a flower to Hiyori, so Ryuen's class point would be deducted in the special exam, and Ichinose's class could secure the first place. Receiving a flower from the opposite sex would count as an inappropriate relationship between students, and that single moment ended up making the Ryuen class fail to get first place. Ayanokoji's sudden feeling also becomes understandable, because he also wants Ichinose to realize the existence of Hiyori, and it could lead to a future conflict where Ichinose would try to expel Hiyori. If that spoiler is true, that means all of Ayanokoji's monologue is just him trying to deceive himself into believing he actually has a feeling for Hiyori. All his words and all his acts are just Ayanokoji's way to manipulate everyone around him. This is aligned with Ayanokoji's monologue from the third-year website, where he said that he finally knows how to use emotion to manipulate others the way he likes, which means at this point Ayanokoji is truly beyond saving. If every action of Ayanokoji in this volume is just an acting, then the scene where he was shown with Haruka also needs to be reevaluated. Haruka approached Ayanokoji because she wanted to show him Sakura's performance on TV, and Haruka tried to make him Sakura's second biggest fan after her. While this scene seems wholesome, there is a chance that Ayanokoji is actually getting close to Haruka just to seek information from her, because there is an indication that Ayanokoji has a spy inside Horikita's class. It could be Kushida, but it's not impossible for Ayanokoji to put more spies for his own insurance. While Ayanokoji doesn't take any big action in this volume, every small action that he did really put a lot of weight inside Horikita and Ryuen's class. Ayanokoji is preparing for a chance to turn the whole grade upside down, and the next big exam will probably become the turning point where everything starts to change. This volume is a heaven for the readers who like mystery and conspiracy that surround Ayanokoji. First we got the new monologue from Tsubasa, and then followed by her secret meeting with Shiraishi. This volume confirms that Shiroishi is a student who was sent to ANHS to observe Ayanokoji, and the one who sent her is most likely Mr. Shirogane, which is the same person who raised Tsubasa and Ichiro. They probably came from the same facility, but from different grades or different groups. What makes it more interesting is that Shiroishi is not alone in her mission. There's one or maybe a lot of students who are also sent to ANHS, and they are still hidden in the school, unknown to anyone, even to Ayanokoji. However, they know about each other, and that's why Tsubasa wants Shiroishi to tell her their names so she can help Ayanokoji. We got introduced to more and more factions, and everything revolves around Ayanokoji and whatever they want from him. Tsubasa's goal will definitely play a crucial part in this. Since she is trying to find Shiroishi's colleague, she is probably gathering more allies to make sure Ayanokoji wouldn't fall into the hands of Atsuomi. However, all this new character is honestly worrying. We have not yet seen the full extent of Kojima and Koenji's father, and yet we got introduced to who know how many people who will take part in the story after graduation. So far we have Atsuomi, Kojima, and Tsukishiro, and now Kinugasa decides to include Mr. Shirogane and who know how many students he put in ANHS. With that much character included in the battle between the four classes, it wouldn't be strange if most of them just ended up forgotten, just like Nagumo. And the last person we need to worry about is Ishigami. Right after Horikita tries to spy on Ichika, Ishigami finally appears and confronts her about it. The way Ishigami manipulates Horikita is honestly worth being praised. He steers the conversation with a very logical explanation, and then starts to give a vague suggestion that will raise a suspicion. Ishigami didn't tell any actual information to Horikita, but he planted a doubt inside her. He told her that Tsubasa probably knows about Ayanokoji, and it actually confused me what Ishigami is actually planning. If Ishigami is on the side of Atsuomi, then he would definitely want Ayanokoji to win, so he probably wanted Horikita to disturb Tsubasa for whatever she was trying to do. However, if Horikita actually learns about Ayanokoji from Tsubasa and decide to help her, then what Ishigami did is the same as backstabbing Atsuomi. We didn't get any more information about Ishigami, but at the end of the volume, we got a monologue of Horikita from the future. She said she finally knows about Ayanokoji's past, about the White Room, and about the tragedy that is waiting for Ayanokoji at the end of his road. She stated that her meeting with Ishigami is the turning point that drastically changed her life. Since this is a monologue from the future, it's finally confirmed that Horikita will play a part in Ayanokoji's life even after they graduate, but the future doesn't sound kind to Ayanokoji. However, we didn't know exactly how far in the future Horikita told us about this. Maybe the tragedy already happened, but there is still a chance to fix it and save Ayanokoji. One thing for sure is, we should prepare ourselves if the ending of Classroom Elite will be way darker than we ever imagined. With every important character finally showing their move, this volume is definitely worth to read.